A few years ago, I was working at a pizza chain in my hometown as a driver. I was 27, but made damn good money delivering story one. Manic Master 623, I'd worked at a few other places, both local and chain, in the years before, and still work as a dasher, on occasion even after this happened. Now I choose to deliver in much safer areas. For this reason, got luckier than I could ever imagine. One night I was working and I had a double two deliveries to take. Both were cash orders, 12 left in my bank. The first order went smoothly. The guy gave me 50 for a 35 orders. While I was excited about that nice tip, I drove to the Kun delivery. It was a 10 apartment complex with multiple buildings. I had delivered here before the sun was about to set, but it was still very light out. The chain I worked at had used all drive company cars with the logo and it all whites. Dance, this is important for later. Now grab the order and goop to the door of the apartment building. A young guy comes out and a much bigger guy, an older guy, was outside smoking a cigarette. The big guy went inside as the smaller guy came outside. He looked around nervously and asked how much he owed meth. The way he was looking around just made me nervous. The hairs on my neck stood on. It told him the amount, and he told me that that wasn't what he was told on the phone. Something was wrong. Felt someone else walk out behind me from the door. The first young guy looked down around the parking lot, craning his neck, as if he was looking for someone. I told him the amount again and broke down the order for him, trying to keep myself calm. Then the first guy held a gun to me right temple. I also felt a poke in my spine. Two gunmen. I couldn't speak, words wouldn't form. No matter how hard it tried, give me your money and your keys. Now the first guy growled. I fumbled for my keys, immediately gave him my bank. But I hadn't realized the 50 was also mixed and gave him the keys. Try my best to remain calm. Another guy came up from my left, had poofy hair and was around the same age as the first kid, one behind me. I hadn't seen yet. The big-haired kid grabbed the pizza bag. Voices sounded. Another voice took off to the other guy, came up in a full sprint before the one behind me, and he dropped the gun in front of me. There's a standard issue in millimeters. There's cart that pulled and saw me was a woman and her kid. Panic set in as I realized they could easily come back. No way worse to me. As the sky started to get dark, I collapsed. Had taken my company car key, $72, the pizza, and my phone. The woman ran up to me and asked if I was all right. She took me into her apartment in the next building over and locked the door. I was shaking so hard I couldn't even hold the phone to talk to 911. Her boyfriend, or I assume was her boyfriend, helped me call. Spoke to the operator and told her everything that happened. Colorblind, and these kids were obviously wearing all black and white clothes. Thank God, I did have a full description of two of them. My poor woman who helped me was going to be late for work, but she stayed until I was off the phone and the cops had shown up, and she was Sharshan blunt with the operator. But I'll never forget this woman's utter kindness to help me and her boyfriends. The cops show up and contacted my store, and my manager brought out the spare keys for Met of the car back to the store. If you're dealing with the cops. I drove back. I was greeted by crying and beyond worried coworkers. All of them were terrified that I was hurt. Did mean a lot to me how much they care, but it told them I was fine. I filed the proper paperwork. The 72 was written off as a loss to the store, thank God, because I'd worked other stores that make you pay back the money you'd have pocket if you get robbed to prevent drivers from stealing. I was then told by the owner to take the rest of the night off and take care of myself. Gave me a hug. You was to this day one of the best bosses that I've ever had. What I didn't know was I was in for every long night. I called my best friend before I left the store and asked where he was. We usually would meet up for a drink after work. He was around the corner at a bar, so I met up with him. His dad was a District 4 cop in my city at the time, the same district that this happened in. He told me his dad had given him a heads up. He had 2 shots waiting for me to calm my nerves. After those 2 shots, Webgin playing pool when his dad called his phone and asked if I was with him. If I told him I was in handed methaphone, his dad asked if I could come to the station. I was honest with him. It told him that I'd have 2 shots. So he ended up sending a squad car to meet me. Since it really wasn't that far away, we got to the station. They had suspects in custody, and I was needed to ID them, 3 boys and a driver. They'd been caught less than 20 minutes after the robbery, speeding. The bala had already gone out, and they matched the description. They had used the money to buy weed gas, and then taken off. They had at least 15 stolen cell phones on them. The order had been placed on a stolen phone, and my phone was in the mix of the box. The police told me to grab my phone only. I'd had asked me to unlock it, and it told the police again every detail. My parental instincts kicked in. It told him the guy behind me, Q. I obviously was bullied into this, and to show mercy, he was the one with the white shirt. The police went wide-eyed and told Meth that he was the one that was talking. The other 3 denied involvement, and that's when I found out about the 4th guy, the driver. He found out later that he was completely unaware of the robbery, was just picking up his friends. She was never charged. The boy who was behind, the one who grabbed the pizza, were 15 and We got 6 months house arrest. The only reason the one behind me got off is easy, despite having the gun to my back, was because I asked them to go easy on him, since he seemed like a good kid who really didn't want to be there. He was the only one confessing. It makes sense, since he'd even said the other guy wouldn't have the phone for long. He was planning on going to the cops had they not actually been caught. But the other guy, the first kid who put the gun to me, Temple, it was his 18th birthday, and he got the book thrown to him in the courtroom. He made fun of me, was laughing at me. Seeing him again made me panic. The judges scolded him for his behavior. He just grinned and glared at me with a Joker-like grin. All I could see in those moments was pure evil. This kid will commit more crimes, I have no doubt about it, and see how cold he's just by looking into his eyes, and I'd never seen this kind of evil in my life, and I never want to again. I asked to have my name stricken from the records and asked to remain anonymous in case Heaver got out. So glad I did, because today got a letter from the state. He's being released in February. The court only had my old address, which was my parents' house. My mom didn't think the letter was important and missed the deadline to protest. For probation, the plea deal was 80 years, and it's only been 4. He's getting out early due to overcrowding now. Good behavior overcrowding, and that's this coming February. I'm ready. If he finds me, my wife, my parents, everyone. Now knows his face and his name. If he tries anything, we're all ready, but for his sake, let's not meet. To the woman in her family who helped me, I was a woman. Then I'm transify. You see this, please know my undying gratitude for you all. It was inconvenient for you, and yet you were still late to work to help me. Can I thank you enough about Christmas presents? For your daughter, but when I went back to the landlord, there to find you, you'd moved. I don't want to be a creep and stalk your new place, but I'm glad you got out of that bad neighborhood. I hope your beautiful baby girl is doing well too. I'll gladly meet you again. If given the proper thanks you deserve from the Domino's driver in Southwest Ohio, edit, he's already got a warrant out for new details, but I know there was another victim based on the type of crime committed. 3 of them got let out on February 2nd, and the warrants are from February 22nd. I've been watching his Facebook since everything was public, just making sure he was staying away from my family. I hadn't checked it since mid-February, so I just checked it. Now I noticed he stopped posting. Originally he was always posting, including asking for smoke and when he was going to be on Facebook. So that was unusual, so I checked the records page. More violent crimes have been committed. He's more than likely on the run. Looked like he was turning around, but I guess not. I know it tried my hardest to make sure he stayed in victim services. Don't care to listen, basically. Now he's hurt someone else. Feel horrible for that new victim. I know it's not my fault, but feel like I'm partially guilty. I'll keep updating this as it develops. As of now, he's on the run. March 22, 2023, he's backing us of March 8 for 5 charges. If victim services has ever failed, it's now. I feel guilty and horrible, like I could have. One more, he's being charged with violent crimes against individuals, possession of a weapon, under disability, and homicide. Someone died by his hand. It tried to keep him locked up. I know this isn't my fault, and I cannot stop the guilt. I hope this won't happen to anybody else by his hand. To solve this point, it'll be years before we verdict, and more than likely, this may be the final update. Thank you all so much for your support. Stay safe out there, friends. It's a crazy, crazy world. Story 2. UA, this is going to take a while to explain everything, so just stay with me. It all comes around. My very first car was a dark green 2000 Volkswagen Jetta. It was the most basic of basics. When it came to cars, no options whatsoever, except for an automatic transmission. It was 300, slow, dumpy, and no right headlight. It drove straight with the steering wheel practically sideways. It let out a cloud of white smoke when it started. Every stereotype of a poor high schooler's carry you can't think of. My car was no exception, despite it being a piece of German crap. I loved that car, and I drove it every chance I had. Don't think a day went by that I didn't drive it. And I made a Thunder Bunny. She was my baby, my beautiful green baby. A Volkswagen's from that generation, Jettas especially. I'm not exactly sure what causes it, but essentially the transmission gradually gets worse and worse until the car will not shift into third gear. There's not a thing you can do from the result. Couple of weeks after Halloween 2019, I was going about 30 miles per hour when the engine just suddenly roared. The car wouldn't speed up. Feared the worst, and my fears were justified. My dad, a mechanic, didn't even have hope for my baby much. To my dismay, Wes started looking for a new car. It only took a month for us to find her a dark green 1999 Volkswagen Jetta, exactly like my old car. She was faster, she had heated leather seats, automatic windows, auto sunroof, everything all except for an automatic transmission. Nick knew who to drive manual, so it was perfect. I had my new baby from crackhead neighbor girl to Scarlett Johansson, at least in my eyes. I loved that caravan harder in a met it little boy and wash happy. I started working as a pizza delivery driver in a smaller growing town in Michigan. It was good money, but every once in a while I delivered to an incredibly sketchy place and have had a few shotguns pulled on me one night about 2 months ago. I was delivering on Friday. Usually Fridays are very busy, but for some reason this day was a little slow, so when a delivery came at 8:30, half an hour before we closed, I jumped on it. I realized it was 1 mile away, so all of the closing jobs would be done by the time I got back. I'd probably be able to leave immediately. It was way out of town, in a wood-surrounded neighborhood. But again, no work when I get back to the store seems like a good deal to me. So I climbed into my car and went to drive 1 mile away. As I pulled up to the house, began to get a bad feeling. The house was in a small trailer park type neighborhood next to a lake. No lights inside. Nothing inside. There's a single car in the driveway and an open window on the side of the house. I pull in behind the car in the driveway, and just there for a moment something felt off. The house being completely dark. By the house being completely dark, and I mean dark, there wasn't even as much as an night light that I could see. Usually when I deliver to a dark house, there's at least a light on the upstairs or something. That would signal that someone is awake and waiting for their pizza. The houses seemed dead. Nevertheless, I put the turned off the engine, grabbed the small cheapest pizza we had, got out without my headlights on. There was nothing. I could barely see the house itself, and the only light was coming from the dim moon. I walked onto the porch and passed the big open window to the front door. As I reached the front door, I saw it. The door was slightly cracked open, just enough for me to see inside, that void of a house, thinking of every single horror movie that I'd ever seen. I said aloud, "That," and hurried back to my car. I'm a tall, well-built looking guy. Despite my wide shoulders and baggy hoodie, a frail thing could hardly fight off a small dog. I got into my car and turned on the engine. My headlights illuminated the house. It almost simultaneously, the living room light behind the big open window lit up. A single guy looked out and walked to the front door. I cussed to myself and weighed my options. If I went up to that door, I could die. If Inno put out of the way, I would be 110 fired. That meant no new car parts, no gas money, no cute dates with my girl. I'd be sitting at home doing virtual school work. Was a stupid choice. I know. I grabbed the pizza and opened up my door, making a choice that I'm damn glad that I still made it. Took the car out of gear and climbed out. Mostly summy engine would still be running so that if it needed I could run back and immediately take off. I walked up to the door. The man had opened it the rest of the way. As I got closer, got a good look at him. I'm not one to judge a person based on their physical appearance, but this guy's head was cleanly shaven and was covered in tattoos. I was wearing a pair of gray jeans and a white tank top. He had a cowl on his face and was completely just staring me dead in the eyes. Looked past him for a moment into that house, which was completely empty. So I got close enough that I started opening up the pizza bag, has started to reach around his waist, and has stopped staring at me with the most evil grin that I'd ever seen. I knew in that moment I was about to die, and always heard your life seems to flash before your eyes. I thought about my girl. She wouldn't know what had happened. My work would stop delivering up on my disappearance, assuming that my body would never be found. My dad would regretling meth that he was happy for me. Landing this job, that's when I heard a distinct sound of gravel under tires, and only pathetically small chance of escape was rolling away. And I didn't even look back at the cart to know that I heard the sound of the car rolling, and it was getting closer. The guy's eyes went from the driveway to behind me. I finally looked over my shoulder. My car had rolled backwards. It had come to a smooth stop near the mailbox of the house. I looked back at the guy, who had a nervous look. He looked back at me and scowled again, and took his hand from around his waist. There, reached into his front pocket and took out $12 and handed it to me. I quickly gave him the pizza and watched him slam the door shut and ran back to my car and practically to Reith. Door off, trying to get and look back at the house, and the man was standing at the front window staring out at me, you better believe. I nearly spun the tires on my way out of the kept glancing at my mirrors until I started driving under streetlights again. It was easily the scare moment I've ever experienced. As soon as I got back to the store, I told my boss about it, and she called the police. Never heard anything about it, and I assumed they went to the house and only found a small cheese pizza. Started carrying a knife on meat. All times my boss is considering getting trackers for our pizza bags. Only recently that I realized this is sort of a butterfly effect. I thought it was the worst thing ever that my transmission went out, and I cursed Volkswagen for designing such a terrible automatic transmission. But if it was still working, then I still would have my old car when this happened. I would have put the car in park. It would have sat there while whatever was going to happen to me happened. Still to this day, I have zero doubts in my mind that that man was planning on murdering me. So shitty German engineering saved me from getting murdered. That night story Just curious 811, I'm new to posting and Reddit and normally just read, and I apologize if I'm not posting to the correct place. This event happened 7 years ago when I was still living in a small town in Illinois. My youngest was a few weeks old, so I was frequently up to feed him, so I slept downstairs with him while my husband and older 2 children slept upstairs. I was woken up to someone knocking on the door. I was half asleep and my only thought was getting to the door before it woke everyone else up. I was so sleep deprived and I wasn't thinking straight. Otherwise, I wouldn't have answered the door so late at night. As I got to the door, my baby started to wake up. So I brought them with me. I opened up the door. There's a man standing there, said, "How can I help you?" stood there. For a moment, didn't say anything at this point. I'm starting to wake up and become more observant. I remember feeling like he seemed nervous, which made me anxious. All he said was, "I'm sorry." I thought he ordered a pizza and he grabbed a box of the table on the porch and walked away. I don't remember what I even said to him, just closed the door and stood there feeling a bit strange, thinking how weird it was. Just told myself maybe he had the wrong houses. So I'm walking back to the living rooms, all o'clock, and my stomach dropped. It was a little after 2 a.m. There's no places around that deliver that late. I'm back to look outside, but I didn't see anyone. There were no cars on the street, made sure all the doors were locked. And I just remember sitting there a little shaken, thinking how off I felt about the situation. Normally a pizza guy says hi, tells how much you owe. All he said was, "I'm sorry. I thought you ordered one." The box was not with him. I didn't see Tuntel had grabbed it off the table as she exited my porch. The table was a few feet away from the door. If he was holding it, I probably wouldn't have asked him how I could help him. I would have said something like, "You were at the wrong house." I don't remember him wearing anything associated with the pizza place or even a name tag. The only place that was nearby was a Pizza Hut's. So I guess it's possible that he maybe had a jacket on, but I don't really remember. Nothing was open that late. Though I'm sure about that, a nervous vibe I got off of him told me something was off. What was she doing if he had bad intentions? I think he either saw that I had dogs or maybe the baby changed his mind. Whenever I think about it, still get chills. I feel very lucky and fortunate, and nothing happened to us that night. Out revoir, and thanks for listening if you stuck around at this point. If you haven't yet, please hit the like button, the subscribe button, and that notification bell to be notified when future episodes come out. If you have a true scary story of your own, feel free to send it to my email or post it to my subreddit. You can stalk me on Twitter, you can stalk me on Facebook, and you can all post to hi yeah. And you can also stalk me on what was the last one I said, Instagram, Twitter, Facebook. Those 3 got it. Yeah, cool. All these links are below. I hope you liked this episode. This was the least voted for on that poly. Yeah, I like polls. What if you like polls? To the poll that I did the other day, and I had the stories already locked and loaded, so this is what you're getting. I just dropped a really long, big old thick boy, like at 3 this morning, like 3 hours of true scary stories. So every month or every other month, I'm probably gonna do one of those when all the stories start to accumulate and get whatever you get, it all right. Sunday, I don't know what I'm gonna do, but you'll have to just, let's find out on Sunday, won't ya, if you care, if you're there, all right? I don't know. I'm gonna go play Tears of the Kingdom and do laundry, so yeah. I got a pretty rough day ahead of me, all right? I love y'all. I'll